Hey guys, welcome to the sixth tutorial of Python for beginners. So far we have learned how to use Visual Studio Code, variable strings and numbers, about for loop, if conditional statement and while loop. Now in this tutorial we'll talk about list and tuples. Next tutorial will be about dictionary, and then we'll start making small programs using all these what we have learned so far. Now, what are lists? A list stores a series of items in a particular order. You access items using an index or within a loop. So how to define a list? Use square brackets to define a list and use commas to separate individual items in the list. Now here we are defining a list. Users is a list which is defined using square brackets, and every element is separated by a comma. Let's use the same example in our Visual Studio Code. File, new file, select language, Python. Now, let's print the type of users. Type is used to find out what type of this users is it. Is it a variable, dictionary, list? Let's see what it gives us. First, we have to save the file, list and tuples, run. So it says it's class list. So this is a list. So what we have learned that defining a list is use square brackets to define a list and use commas to separate individual items in the list. Now this is a list which has these items separated by commas. The name of the list is users. Now let's see what we can make use of this list, how we can read the individual elements of list, how to read this list using a loop. Let's go forward. Accessing elements. Now individual elements in a list are accessed according to their position, called the index. The index of first element is 0, second element is 1, and so forth. Negative indices refer to items at the end of the list. What this means, we'll see an example after this. To get a particular element, write the name of the list and then the index of the element in square brackets. Now it says first user is user 0. Let's find out for what first user we have in our users list. Now if I print users 0, what this will give? Let's remove this one. Print 0. Steve. Steve is the first one, so we refer the first element of the index, first element of the list with index 0. Now if I do 1 here, what will I get? Peter. And what if I do -1 here? So -1 starts from the end. 0 starts from beginning. It is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. -1 starts at the end. So -1 will be this one. -2 is Ram. -3 is George. Let's print it out. Let's clear this first. Run the program. It's Anu. This is the last one. So if I do -2 here, Ram, which is second from the last. Let's go back to our tutorial. So we learned how to access the elements of the list. Now, modifying individual items in the list. First we have learned how to access it. Now we will learn how to modify it. So once you have defined a list, you can change individual items in the list. You do this by referring to the index of the item you want to modify and then giving a new name to it. Now, let's go here. First, we can print the list. Then we will change the list and then we will print it again. Users 0 is equals to new member. And then we print the list again. Let's see what we get. So here, Steve, Peter, George, Ram, Anu. When we added a new number here, it became new member, Peter, George, Ram, Anu. So what it did, it actually replaced the first one with this one. So we have modified the list. So see it again. Steve has been replaced by a new member. Peter same, George, Ram and Anu are same. Let's go back to our tutorial. In the same way, you can do it using the minus index, which will start from the last. Let's try again. Now if I do here -1 as last member, let's clear this out. What will happen now? Anu will be replaced by the last member. Rest will remain the same. So Anu has been replaced by last member. Rest all names are same. So this way you can modify the items in the list by giving the index here and giving the new value to the particular place set. Like users 0 is first this one, users 1 is Peter. So whatever index you will give here and you give the new value to it, it will be replaced in the list. Let's move forward. Now, first we have learned how to modify. Now we will learn how to add. It says adding element to the list. Now, you can add elements to the end of a list, or you can insert them wherever you like in a list. Read this again. You can add elements to the end of the list, or you can insert them wherever you like in a list. Now, adding an element to the end of the list. So if we use this command users.append and a name here, then it will be added at the end. Other elements of the list will not be modified, but this will be the last element in the list. Now, let's go. Remove all this. Now, we are appending Ronnie. Let's see what will happen. Or first, let's print users and then use the same command again. Clear this out. Now what will happen? At the last, you will have Ronnie will be added to the list, which is the name of, the users is the name of the list. So then the last element will be added to the list over here. Let's run it. So see, all the elements of the list are same. The last is added is Ronnie. So this is the new member added. So you can append whatever you will append, it will come at the last. Can we write it again? What will happen then? Let's run it again. So we have Ronnie and last name. So whenever you use append, it doesn't modify the existing elements, but it will add at the last. Now what if you want to modify the existing members of the list? Let's see. Now inserting elements at a particular position. Now here, let's take the example. Now, users.insert 0. So at 0 position, this will be added. Let's comment this out first. Let's go one by one. So at 0 position, I am at 0 will be inserted, and then other elements will shift one place to the right. Let's see. Run. So what happened now? Steve, Peter, George, Ram, Anu. A new element has added, which is at 0, which is I am at 0, and then rest elements shifted one place to the right. Let's insert a new element at 3. Let's see what will happen. Now see, I am at 0, it's 0, and then in the third place it is I am at 3, and then other elements are there. Steve, Peter, George, Ram, and Anu. So in this way you can insert new elements to the list. You can define an index. At that particular index, a new value, a new member will be placed over here. Now let's move forward. Now how to remove elements from a list. You can remove elements by their position in a list or by the value of the item. If you remove an item by its value, Python removes only the first item that has that value. So what this means? Let's try. First read it again. You can remove elements by their position in a list or by the value. So position like 0, 1, 2, 3, value by the name of that item. If you remove an item by its value, so Python removes only the first item that has that value. We'll see here. Now first we'll try deleting an item, an element by its position. Now if we execute this command, just think about it. Will this remove from the start or from the last? As it is -1, it will remove the element from the last. Let's try here. Delete users. Now if this works well, then what should happen? The last element will be removed. Let's see. See, last element name was item name was Anu. So Anu has been removed now. So this is when we give the value of the index. If I do index 0 here, then this Steve will be removed, rest all will be there. Let's run it. So Steve has been removed and all have been shifted one place to the left. Now we have read one more thing, which was by the value of item. Now what it says, if you remove an item by its value, Python remove only the first item that has that value. What this means, let's see. Now Steve is there. Let's put one more Steve here. Now if we remove these two for a while, run it. So it says Steve, Peter, George, Ram, Anu, Steve. So we have two Steve over here. Now it says remove Steve. So what will happen now in this case? Will both of them remove? No. Only the first occurrence of the item will be removed. Now let's see. Let's clear this one. Let's run. So Steve, Peter, George, Ram, Anu, Steve. One Steve has been removed, other has shifted one place to the left, and but the last Steve is still present. So you know what it means now? If you remove an item by its value, Python remove only the first item that has that value. Let's move forward. Popping elements from the list. What this means? Now, if you want to work with an element that you are removing from the list, you can pop the element. If you think of the list as a stack of items, pop takes an item off the top of the stack. So by default, pop returns the last element in the list, but you can also pop elements from any position in the list. So what this means, if I use users.pop, then only the last element will be removed. But I have this option of giving the index to it. So then that particular index value will be popped. Let's see. First we use only the pop without any index. Now most recent users is users.pop. Let's remove Steve from here because it was duplicate. Now what will happen? Most recent users, users.pop without any index value should pop out the last element of the list. Let's see. Let's print users first and then print it again. What will happen? Let's see. Clear this out. Now see, last element is Anu, so it has removed the last item in the list, which is Anu. We have not given any index over here, and then the whole list was updated. So what pop did, it popped up the last element of the list and it updated the list also. Now if I want to do users.pop is 0, what will happen? Think about it. It should be the first from the left, which is Steve. Let's clear this out. Now if I run this, so Steve is the first one because we have given the value, the index is 0. So index 0 has value Steve. Similarly, you can do here. Now it's George, which will be removed. Let's see, it's George. So this way, you can easily pop out the element of the list, and then the list will also be updated. Just remember this thing, the list is also getting updated when you use pop. In next slides or 2-3 slides, we will learn how to take the element out, but the list will still not be updated. The list will still be there as it is what we have started with. Okay, let's move forward. Now, functions on a list. Now the length function returns the number of items in the list. So basically what we are doing here is there are some functions what we can apply on the list also. So there are few functions we are discussing here. First is the length function. The length function returns the number of items in a list. So num users is length of users. Let's see what it gives us. Num users is length of users. Let's see what it will print. You can directly also print length of users, but we are making use of a variable over here. Let's clear this out. Run it. So 5. Are there 5 elements? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what length of users function will give us? The number of items in the list. Sort. Sort method changes the order of a list permanently. The sorted function returns a copy of the list leaving the original list unchanged. This I was referring you before, that we can pop was popping out the element, but it was updating the list also. But this sort function will also do the same thing, will sort the element item in the list permanently. So the list will also be updated. But if you don't want the list to be updated, but still you want to print out the sorted items on the list, you can use the sorted function. Let's see here. Sorted a list temporarily. Users.sort. Print users. Users.sort and then print users. Let's clear this out. Let's see what we will get. So this is the list: Steve, Peter, George, Ram, Anu. We have printed the list, which is this one, original list. Now when we applied sort function over here, then the list, the final list, also gets updated. So now the list is Anu, George, Peter, Ram and Steve, which is in the ascending order. So this has sorted out. Let's move forward. Sorting a list temporarily. Now in this case, what will happen? The main list will remain the same, but we are playing with the items of the list and we are printing that one. Let's see what will happen here. So here we are printing the users. Here we are printing sorted users. Okay, let's comment this out first. And then we are printing users again. First we are printing the list, then we are printing sorted list, and then we are printing the original list again. Let's see what will happen. This is the first list what we printed here. Now this is the sorted users, which has sorted the list, but it has not updated the list. So once you see here, we are printing the list again. So now you see what is the difference between users.sort and sorted. Users.sort, pop function, all of these functions, they actually update the original list. But the sorted function only has updated or printed out the list items in a specific order what we want, but it is not updating the original list. Now here let's try with reverse. So what it will do, it will reverse sort, it will print the sorted list in a reverse, which is descending order. Let's clear it out. So now Steve, Ram, Peter, George. So this is the main list, this is the sorted list, and this is the main list. So difference between sort and sorted: sort updated the main list also, sorted did not update the main list but only the output of this function. Now let's move forward. Now this is one of the most important thing which we will be using in future, which is looping through the list, because you're not going to use index because if the list is huge, you don't know what value or what index has. So what we will do here, we will read the list of items using the loop. How we can use that? Let's see. This is a for loop. It's a very small command, for loop. So what we are doing here is we are accessing all the elements of the list in this variable, and then we are printing the variable. So what it will do, it will read the elements of the list one by one, and then it will print in a new line, which is printing users. Let's clear this out. Run. See what it did? It printed the items of the list one by one. So this is a for loop what we have used. this is a variable which is storing one by one all the values of this list. So this is a list. What it is doing, it is taking one value by one in user variable, and then it is printing that variable in the output console. So this way it works, because if the list is huge, you don't know what index value of RAM has. There are ways to find out, but it's easy to just print out or to scan the list using the for loop, and then you can check. You can do many checks over here also. If the user is Steve, then don't print it. If the user is George, then don't print it. So we will start coding after 2 more lessons, but so far I'm just making you aware of how list works, how to access items and all. Let's proceed further. Now there are simple statistics. Now here I'm just leaving this for you guys to have a look and check how this works. Now this is a list of ages. Now what it will happen, this will find out what is the minimum age of the list, and then you can print out. So just for your help, I'm telling you, this is a variable, this is a function. Now variable has been assigned a value of the function, and then you can print this out. So try this particular page on your laptop and see how it works. Okay, moving further. Now tuples. What are tuples? A tuple is like a list, except you can't change the values in a tuple once it is defined. Read it again. A tuple is like a list, except you can't change the values in a tuple once it is defined. So it's a kind of static data. Tuples are good for storing information that shouldn't be changed throughout the life of a program. Tuples are designated by parentheses instead of square brackets. You can overwrite an entire tuple, but you can't change the individual items in a tuple. Just read this sentence. Just read it by yourself, and then we'll start again. So what is a tuple? A tuple is like a list, except you can't change the values in a tuple once it is defined. Tuples are good for storing information that shouldn't be changed throughout the life of a program. Tuples are designated by parentheses instead of square brackets. So what basically this means is that if you see here, we have defined users list by using square brackets, but tuples are defined like these brackets. So parentheses instead of square brackets. So we are not using square brackets, we are just using parentheses over here. You can overwrite an entire tuple, but you can't change the individual elements in a tuple. Now this is the way you can define it, and this is the way, same with the for loop also you can use the tuple. So if I want to print tuple over here, so we can do that. Why it is, see, when you're coding in Visual Studio Code, it's very good. It gives you a warning like, see, this is something wrong because we have a capital D over here and here it is small d. So this is the reason why it is giving a warning. So now if I change it to D, that will go off now. See, this is one of the best thing you can make use of Visual Studio Code editor. Now let's clear this out and let's print it again. Print it, and now what will happen? It has printed the elements of tuple in one by one, 800 and 600. You can give many more values to it also, but whatever value you will give, it will be printed using the for loop. So for loop is one of the best tools to use for list and tuples, as it reads all the items one by one, and then you can make use of, you can compare those elements, you can print it, you can not print it, you can do whatever you want. But to access the elements of list and tuples, for is one of the best loop to use. Now, okay, so this is overwriting a tuple. Now we are basically, if you remember in list, we were updating it by giving the index or the value. But tuple is a static data. We can't change the individual items of tuples, but we can override the complete tuple. It means we can define it all over again. So if I say this one now, 800 and 600, which is already the case here. So if I use here capital D, and if I define 500 and 300, so what will happen now? Then 500 and 300 will be printed, and rest will not be printed because this has been overwritten now. So we have defined the dimensions again with the new values. So what we can do here is you can also access the elements of tuples by indexes. So please see it again, what we are saying. You can access the elements, you can't change it. So why it is giving me D? Because this is in capital and this is in small. Let's change over here, make it consistent. Remove these elements. So now what will happen? This is accessing the 0 element. Now if we print this one, and if we print similarly this item as well, let's see what we will get. So 800 and 600. So you can access by giving the index number, but you cannot change it. So now you know the difference between list and tuples. List, you can change it, you can change by index or value, you can, but in tuples you cannot do that. Tuples is a static data. You can redefine your tuple again, but you cannot change the individual items of tuples. Hope you enjoyed this session. You learned something new today, and the next lesson we'll talk about dictionaries, and then we'll start coding. We'll start with small programs, and then we will learn new concept of Python. Hope you liked this session. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, and please write comments on the video, like if you want me to make on some other topic, or if you have any questions, then please write. I will answer over there. Thank you.